Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today as part of the Industrial Transformation Asia Pacific 2021. We're going to talk about Industry 4.0 and in particular how enterprises can build their capabilities along the journey. Let's get going and set a little bit of context. How relevant is Industry 4.0 today? Well, actually more than ever. The pandemic that we all know has created what we call the need for a great reset. We see four key shifts that companies need to be able to tackle as they are maneuvering their way out of the pandemic and capturing new opportunities. The first one, agility and customer centricity, is more needed than ever in order to react faster to customer preferences and therefore be able to capture demand. That requires adjustment to manufacturing facilities, manufacturing flows, and an increase in flexibility. Second, supply chain resilience. No surprise, they have been massively disrupted by the pandemic, and the need for resilience is clearer than ever. Many companies have changed their policy from just in time to just in case, and that is just going to continue. Third, speed and productivity was already there before the pandemic, but even more than ever, companies need to maintain productivity, even in light of labor shortages. And finally, but last but not least, sustainability. This is going to be the biggest trend over the coming decade. It will be a must-have to stay in the business and respond to regulatory changes that are going to be more stringent as the world races towards meeting the Paris Agreement. But it is also representative of an opportunity that leaders can tackle to generate more revenue. In light of this, Industry 4.0 transformations need to be accelerated, and we have seen leaders doing it. Product and service innovation, of course, is another area of improvement. Let's dive further on Industry 4.0. By now, actually, success stories exist around the world. The World Economic Forum and McKinsey have identified 90 so-called lighthouses that have successfully implemented Industry 4.0 at scale. Those companies are located around the world, irrespective of the economy. Some of them are in Southeast Asia, 3 of them in Singapore. Now, what is interesting about the lighthouses? Coming to the 4 shifts, all of them have improved productivity, but a few of them have also driven growth as well as sustainability. Actually, 93% of the lighthouses are driving growth through better time to market and product flexibility. So answering to that customer centricity and agility that I mentioned earlier. And nearly 2/3 of them are driving impact through sustainability, and either in a direct way or an indirect way. The key use cases that they are using are IoT and visualization, digital twins, or advanced analytics, generally focused on improving energy consumption or tracking waste management or water usage. Now, 90 companies, that's great, but success remains very difficult to reach. When we survey companies around the world, we keep hearing that they are facing pain points and issues at the various stages of transformation. And in particular, while they are able to start pilots, they get stuck into what we call the pilot trap. Actually, 74% of the companies we interviewed in 2020 said that they were stuck in this pilot trap and unable to scale the implementation of the Industry 4.0 use cases that they have adopted. So the challenges are summarized across a couple of elements. It's the inability to create an impact-driven roadmap. The roadmap is typically technology-driven rather than business-backed. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, the navigation of technology providers. Typically very complicated, typically difficult to find out what is the right solution for your company and cost-effective. And third is the organization. Industry 4.0 is a team sport, so winning over the silos is critical, and winning over the workforce, beating the myth that are associated with I 4.0, which is robots are going to take my job, artificial intelligence is going to replace me, is critical in order to be able to successfully scale. And so the recipe that the World Economic Forum lighthouses have adopted is basically not one, but actually 3, a triple transformation in order to successfully scale their implementation. On the business side, it's a ruthless prioritization based on return on investment and payback period. The use cases are clearly classified and to what they are bringing to the business along the value chain, either in predicting demand, procurement, supply management, within the four walls of production, or even down to the distribution and customer response, right? And the ability to identify the use case is doubled by the ability to also identify how to cut the corners to keep the implementation within the costs and maximizing the impact. The second element is on technology. Companies are thinking from the onset about what the Industry 4.0 stack needs to look like. This is a different stack to the old legacy IT. It is more modular and therefore more scalable. The second element is that it includes the big data that comes from IoT, from basically machines that are providing tons of data that needs to be used and married with the data from legacy IT systems. The second bit on technology is that, again, I 4.0 is a sports game, it's a team's game. And in this case, the team is not only internal, but also external. Successful companies, big or small, need to think about what their technology ecosystem is going to be. And finally, they need to adopt agile ways of working to quickly implement Industry 4.0 use cases and iterate them to make sure they respond in the best possible way to the needs of the front line, either in the field or at the factory. Finally, on the organization, the agile approach needs to be championed from the top. Learn fast, fail fast is not only a motto, it needs to be role modeled and celebrated by the top management. Capabilities need to be built. One example, a steel company that made it to a World Economic Forum Lighthouse trained 800 people on advanced analytics, and these are not PhDs. And finally, a transformation office that ruthlessly tracks the execution of initiatives is required to keep the momentum. Now, how do you do this, right? That's the recipe. Well, there is a step-by-step approach that can be used to implement the triple transformation. It starts with building the right awareness, right? What Industry 4.0 is about is differently understood by different parts of the organization. So bringing everyone together and understanding that it covers data and computing power, advanced analytics, robotics, automation, augmented reality, as well as new engineering techniques like 3D printing or nanotechnology is critical, and that it applies along the value chain from customer order to production to delivery. That is one, that is critical. Second, it's important that companies embark on a rigorous diagnostic that allows to identify the high value use cases and allow to do the prioritization. Then it's important to create momentum. That's where the pilots are needed, and we don't want the pilot trap. So those pilots need to show real impact and need to start creating momentum within the organization within 3-4 months. So you start with the quick wins, typically around the implementation of IoT for transparency on the shop floor. Finally, the whole transformation in waves generally lasts 12 to 18 months to reach a certain stage and then continues along the way. Tools are available to companies in order to navigate this journey. They are listed here: the Smart Industry Readiness Index, model factories or digital capability centers, training programs such as the Industry 4.0 Human Capital Initiative, and standards that are championed by the Singapore Standards Council. SIRI, the Smart Industry Readiness Index, is the official index endorsed by the World Economic Forum, and it helps companies understand how ready they are, what is their maturity level to get onto the journey along 16 dimensions that follow the triple transformation approach of process, technology, organization. It will help companies understand, compared to their peers in the same sector, are they adopting the relevant practices in terms of processes, vertical integration between enterprise and shop floor, horizontal integration with the supply chain or product life cycle. They will also understand on the technology side, how mature are they in the implementation of automation, of connectivity on the shop floor or in the enterprise, or the use of analytics. And finally, on the organization side, it helps companies understand where they stand in terms of workforce learning and development, so the capability gap, the team game, inter and intra-company collaboration, leadership, savviness, and competency on Industry 4.0, and finally, the strategy, what is the how the roadmap has been set up. Once companies have taken SIRI, they can also leverage model factories and digital capability centers to help them along the journey, from awareness to capability building, to being linked with an ecosystem of technology providers and startups, or to experiment with an innovation testbed in a risk-free environment, some of the technologies before bringing them on their shop floor. The Digital Capability Center in Singapore is a collaboration between McKinsey and ARTC, the Advanced Remanufacturing and Technology Center, and has held over 3,000 leaders since its launch in 2017. In addition to digital capability centers, training programs can help companies prepare and or navigate their transformation. One example is the Industry 4.0 Human Capital Initiative, championed by the Singapore Business Federation and Workforce Singapore. This program helps companies prepare for their implementation by deploying IoT kits over a 6 to 8 weeks period. They can taste what the triple transformation looks like and then implement it with support from technology providers over the remainder of the 1 year. Finally, standards are very important for a successful implementation. Our discussions with technology providers show that they rely on standards to guide throughout the engagement, guide companies throughout the engagement. They provide best practices and a good framework to ensure the scalability and expansion of the implementation. A quote from Wilson Deng from Arcstone highlights that standards are fundamental to be able to leverage the best tool sets and solutions. However, our findings also show that more awareness of the standards could be helpful from the company side. Companies are seldom aware of Industry 4.0 standards unless they are implementing themselves a bespoke solution, for instance, using ARTC's testbeds. Standards are taken as a given for most of the time, only when solution providers highlight the necessity. However, once standards have been discussed with those companies, some of them highlighted that standards could be used to actually monitor how well they are applying the triple transformation recipe. That can be food for thought. Some key takeaways from this discussion. Number one, Industry 4.0 remains more than ever relevant. COVID-19 accelerated the focus and the need to implement Industry 4.0 transformations in order to increase agility and customer centricity, increase speed and productivity, make supply chains more resilient, and embark on your sustainability transformation. Number two, success is possible. 90 lighthouses have been identified around the world by the World Economic Forum. 3 of them are in Singapore. However, we all reckon that there are challenges along the way, in particular in scaling up the pilots. The pilot trap remains a reality for 3/4 of the companies. The recipe is the triple transformation. Business, technology, organizations, they need to happen all at once, not in separation. And tools are available along the way, from Siri, capability centers, standards, and training programs in order to help companies navigate. On the standard side, more awareness is needed in order to really leverage the power that they can provide in ensuring best practice implementation during the journey. Thank you very much for your attention.